Good morning, ladies. Welcome back to Reset the Airways. I am your host, Tynisha Woolley. I am a higher education professional by day and a certified purpose and soul transformation coach by night. And today is day 4 of our journey on Reset the Airways. We've been on all week. We've been having phenomenal morning interviews. And then in the evening, we have fireside chats that dig a little bit deeper into the topics that we talk about in the morning. And so today's morning interview and theme is titled Reset Before You Repeat. And so let me just talk for and speak to the heart of the truth of what I found in so many leaders, high achieving women, including myself. And the women that I coach aren't stuck because of a weakness. The women that I coach are strong, they are resilient, they are committed, but sometimes that strength turns into striving. And we've been taught to lead, to serve, to just push through, right? And so then we normalize high functioning stress. We become experts at hiding it and holding it all together, even when we feel undone inside. And without realizing it, we find ourselves in these quiet patterns. We move with fear masked as control. We stay silent to keep the peace. We isolate when we feel unseen. And then we carry the shame in our private thoughts. And then we repeat it all in the name of survival. But here is the beauty. Recognizing the patterns in our life isn't failure. It is the beginning of freedom. And once you can name the loop of those patterns, you can interrupt it. And then once we interrupt it, we can reset it. And that is the journey that we are walking on today. Because breakthrough doesn't always start with force, but it most definitely starts with awareness. So to help us unpack this today is someone that not only understands the cycle of stuckness, but has lived through it, reset it, and is now helping others to rise because of it. Our guest today, Ms. Ayana Fernandez Pilgrim, is a bold talent strategist and certified coach with a rich history as an experienced global talent acquisition leader, career educator, and speaker. She is the founder and CEO of the Talent Cornerstone Company, a talent strategy consultancy and career transformation firm. She is on a mission to increase access to opportunity by shifting organizational cultures and building bridges to possibility for diverse professionals. Her professional foundation has been built by conducting full lifecycle recruiting for companies including Bank of America, Pfizer Pharmaceuticals, and Cigna Healthcare. She's led recruiting teams across various corporate functions. Most recently, she served as the founder and head of Vanguard's Emerging Talent and Diversity Recruiting Strategy organization. Under her leadership, the firm improved representation of underrepresented groups, enabled inclusive hiring for all global sites, and activated its first bilingual Spanish talent He's had of opening up the realms of professional opportunity for students at Temple University's Fox School of Business, and more recently, MBA students at Bard College. She is bold, wise, and incredibly grounded, and I have been waiting for this conversation all week. So please help me welcome Miss Yana. Hello.
Hello,
Welcome to
Tynisha.
Reset the Airways.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be here with you.
So we've got a lot to unpack today. So I'm going to jump right in because I'm just so excited about this conversation we're going to have today.
Same.
And I want to start with something that hits a little close to home, if that's okay.
That's fine.
So I want to ask you, what is the biggest cycle of stuckness that you've had to break, and how did you do it?
Yeah, it's a really great way to start the conversation. And I really appreciate you as well, Tynisha, because you really set the stage for us in terms of what so many women go through. So I'm happy to share my testimony in terms of my experience that I have lived through. For me, the two biggest things that have held me back have been perfectionism and people pleasing, right? And I think oftentimes we, in childhood even, start to get these habits entrenched in us, sometimes unknowingly, sometimes as a byproduct of our family structure, sometimes as a byproduct of society, particularly if you're a person of color, and the various things that we're taught from a young age, right? You have to be doubly better, right, than everybody else. You have to work at a high standard. It can perpetuate perfectionism, the idea that you cannot make any mistakes. And if you do, that you're in trouble, or it's going to somehow derail you or really be catastrophic, right? So we can catastrophize in our minds the idea that if we make a mistake, it's bad, right? So for me, I struggled with that for a long time, and that carried on with me in work, in the work environment, in the workplace. But one of the things that I realized as I grew in my executive leadership was that perfectionism can be rewarded, right? It can be rewarded. So then it can become difficult for you to then want to let go of those patterns of behavior, because it can lead to you doing excellent things, creating great work. But for me, I realized that it became a burden because it would slow me down in certain instances. It may, result in me kind of being so meticulous, right? That can be a drag on the people that you work with if you're overly meticulous. And then for me, the people pleasing part also could be harmful for me in terms of my well-being, right? So Tynisha, I would notice patterns where I would have days in my schedule, my work schedule would be back to back to back to back to back meetings. Did I have to take every one of those meetings? Probably not. But I was wanting to please everybody, right? So if it was a younger intern coming in, I'd want to meet with them. If it was, someone in the middle who just was curious about a new pathway, I'd want to meet with them. Even though sometimes you do have to make trade-offs and you can't always be available to everyone all the time. So those two patterns of behavior for me have been significant in shaping kind of the trajectory of where I've gone. They've helped in certain ways, but could be very harmful, like you said, those things that are unseen, causing you to think about yourself in a certain way. And I think really, Tynisha, in reflection, I think a lot of perfectionism and people pleasing has to do with the root of worthiness. Do you feel worthy? Do you feel like you're enough by yourself, mistakes and all, right? And that's really the root of the work that we each have to do for whatever is holding us back. For me, my healing journey has been really rich with working on those two particular patterns of behavior.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you for being so candid in sharing your testimony with us, because it is so powerful. And I feel like a lot of women can relate to those two things. I know that I can, the perfectionism, especially, and trying to overcome feelings of anxiety and what that's rooted in. And so you talked a little bit about some of the visible signs of being stuck in the workplace, but some of the most dangerous loops that we see are emotional or spiritual. So in your experience, what are some of the common loops that you see women repeat without even realizing it on the emotional and spiritual level?
Yeah, I feel like this question is so rich, right? And it can be answered in a number of ways. I think for me, what I have often seen with individuals that I've worked with, both in the workplace and also clients in my coaching practice, is that you see that folks are oftentimes held back by ideas of lack or limitation or fear of loneliness, right? So they may be stifled in making critical decisions around making radical change for themselves just by the mere thoughts that come into their mind around, will you have enough money if you leave that job? Will you have company if you leave that relationship? Will you still feel like you have a rich sense of community? So oftentimes the spirit of lack, right? That feeling of lack, will I be missing out on something? The spirit of limitation, which sometimes can whisper into our ear things that are not true, right? Like you don't have what you need to get started with a business when you may in fact have everything that you need. but you have to counter, those ideas, those notions that come into your head, and it takes constant work to renew your mind, to reprogram your mind, right, out of believing what maybe you've been conditioned to believe, again, either from familial situations or workplace situations where you've been conditioned to kind of almost dream and think in a box, right? We want to break the box, right? We want to break the parameters, right? And become free so that we can make choices that would radically put us into a place where we're liberated, where we no longer have to wear a mask, where we no longer have to think small of ourselves, but we can tap into the abundance that is us, right? If God is within us, we're abundant. We have everything that we need at our disposal at every time. So I think for me, I think confronting those ideas, those notions of lack, of limitation, are critical for people who are at the precipice of real liberation, real freedom, to choose for themselves, to choose differently, and to walk a life of purpose. I know you and I are both passionate about purpose, right? And if we want to walk out our purpose, we need to be liberated from those ideas.
Absolutely. And you are just confirming what we've been talking about mostly this week about whose voice are we obeying? Are we obeying those whispers of fear that are rooted in childhood or our human experiences? Are we obeying the voice of God, which is rooted in the truth because he made us and he knows who we are? And the thing that is really wild about it is that we often know that change is necessary because we can feel it in our minds, our bodies, our spirits. But then we just resist doing it. And so, why do you think that women fear resettling, even though it is painfully aware that a shift needs to happen?
Yeah, I think the answer is in your question, right? It's fear. And fear can manifest itself in many ways, right? It could be fear of being alone, like we just talked about, fear of not having enough, but it also can be fear of failure. Sometimes it's even fear of success, right? They might feel like, am I going to be able to withstand if friends or family may treat me differently or look at me differently if I achieve this level of success? It's fascinating, Tynisha. I was just facilitating a workshop yesterday with a national nonprofit. And one of the participants said, when I stopped at the table and they were doing an exercise, she said, sometimes I'm afraid to even share that I feel like I've reached a level of work-life integration, for fear that maybe it'll make other people feel bad. Right. And so we have to reckon with all of those voices, as you said, that seep into our consciousness that tell us we shouldn't do something, or we should shy away from celebrating our successes or our wins. That's where our power lies. Because you might be sitting there afraid to share it, and the other person across from you might have just needed to hear that to get a sense of permission that they too can share it, or they can ask you questions to learn and get wisdom so they can get to that place eventually, right? So I think for many of us, it's a combination of fears that may present themselves in different ways at different times. But it is, as the scripture reminds us, an invitation to renew our minds daily. We have to be reminded through our practices, whether it's morning or evening devotionals, but also not putting our devotional time in a box. We can access the technology of prayer at any time. We're in a time where everyone's talking about technology and AI and all of it. We have ancestral and really a legacy of old technology in the form of things like prayer and meditation, stillness. So I think when we are confronted with fear, it's an invitation to tap into some of those practices so that we can get free.
And that's the definition of praying without ceasing, right? All day, at any time, you can access that powerful tool. And I think what I hear you saying is that reflection becomes non-negotiable when you're in these situations and you feel like, hey, I want to move to the next level. But sometimes reflection alone cannot carry the weight of the transformation that is needed. So what do you feel the role of reflection and accountability and community play in helping someone break through?
Yeah, I think that's great that you put that in 3 buckets, because all are equally important. I think community is central, right? Because if you are in a situation where you want to make radically different choices, you need to know you have a village, right? You have a village that's there to support you, that is there to encourage you, that's there to hold space for you if you need to grieve a little bit as you shift. So I think community is critical. You can't do it without community. There's an African proverb that I love and I hold dear to my heart, and I repeat it often, which reminds us, if you want to go, fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, you go together, right? So that reminds us community is critical. I think from what was the first one that you mentioned? Accountability, and what was the first one?
Reflection, accountability, and community.
Reflection is critical. So I think it's not until we get still that we can tap into where we really need to make changes in our lives. I think we're in a world that is so busy and so filled with noise. We can, be listening to podcasts on the way home, which is great, but it also cuts into our quiet time, right? I think the importance of allowing yourself some stillness. Firm believer in meditation. Prayer is talking to God, but meditation is listening, right? So that time to get still, to listen, and to understand maybe what you need to do next, where you need to go, to discern what path you need to take is of the utmost importance. And I think doing that regularly and making a pattern of doing that will strengthen the gifts of discernment, will strengthen your ability to be strong and courageous, right? And embark on new decisions that might be challenging. And then I think for the last part of what you mentioned, when you talk about accountability, as coaches, you and I know well, right? You can't do effective coaching without incorporating forms of accountability. And in fact, that's why coaches are so helpful, because they can serve as really great accountability partners with you. So as you get still and as you set a vision for what you feel is next in your life, and you start to make, many goals for yourself to accomplish, you want to invite either the support of a coach, the support of a mentor, friend, sister, cousin, whomever is closest to you that you feel like you can trust, and who will hold your foot to the fire, right? Everyone needs someone who will just tell them the truth and challenge them. Hey, Ayana, you said you were going to do that a week ago. You didn't get your deadline. Like, what resistance did you face? How are you going to overcome that? What's the new reset goal that you are setting for yourself? So that can be extremely helpful. And I would say it doesn't have to always cost money to have accountability, right? You can get that for free, right? Accountability can be asking your eldest child to, remind you to do something. So it can be simple. It can be accessible to you in your day-to-day life as well.
Absolutely. And you are speaking to the heart of why I wanted to do this series. And just to share that a lot of us are in that same boat of looking to reset, whether it's reset to move into the first level of leadership or leading your life, or moving to the next level. And it really does take a community who can hold you lovingly accountable, but also not be afraid to challenge you to take those next steps that you need to take. And so every single person who is in this journey of purpose and living out who God has made them to be needs that support, because we don't know everything. God is the only person that knows the whole plan. And so as we are stepping out there in faith and into things that really feel challenging and scary, it's helpful to have the support of people around you. So thank you so much for underscoring that for us.
Absolutely.
And I want to now speak directly to the women who are listening, who feel like they've tried everything. They've tried a little bit of therapy, they've tried prayer, they've maybe tried journaling, and they're actively doing those things, but nothing sticks. What would you say to her? Where does she start again?
Yeah, I think there's so many women that are in this boat right now, Tynisha, particularly post the COVID pandemic, all of the things that we lived through over the last 5 to 6 years, which have been significant, racial trauma, so much more, right? And folks have their own life that is lifing in many ways. So there's so many factors that kind of impact a woman getting to the place where they want to invite change into their life. I liked how you framed it at the beginning of our conversation, talking about, I think you evoked the language of a mask, right? People kind of walking around, hiding these pains that they're going through. And that resonates with me. And I'll share a little bit of my testimony with you of how I got to a place of radical change. For many years, I was kind of going through the motions, right? I was doing my job well. I was in my relationship, making sure the kids had what they need, and hustle bustle and just getting everything done. But I was kind of numb in certain ways, right? Just going through the motions. But then after the pandemic, that started to feel disingenuous, right? It didn't feel like I had a congruency between, my lived experience and my spirit and where I was going. And so I started to feel like I need something to change, like something has to change. I can't keep going like this. And I would invite the quote from one of our great ancestors, Fannie Lou Hamer, when you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, right? Some of us get to that point where you're just sick and tired of having, kind of for some of us, it could be workplace trauma. For others of us, it could be relationship drama, a whole host of different things. But you get to your point where change is needed. I would say that's an invitation to answer that call and to do the difficult work, right? To make a choice to get still and to get present enough that you can discern and hear what maybe the new path might look like. And it might require hard choices, right? In my life, it required the choice of separating from a marriage and then divorcing. It required a choice of making a decision to leave a job that I loved, but I needed to prioritize my health and stay true to what I always propose, which is health and family first. And so sometimes you have to make really difficult choices. But if you trust a God and you keep your hand in His and you keep walking the journey out, your healing will unfold. Just like a layer of an onion or just like a flower that is starting to bloom, you will begin to excavate the things like we talked about in the last few questions, those behaviors, those limiting mindsets that have maybe held you back from seeing who you really are and walking in your full glory, full worthiness, full power. Because when you do that, you not only set yourself free, but you set other folks free. Because then they begin to see a change can be possible in my life. I don't have to just go on the status quo. I don't have to just keep walking the same path just because I've been walking it for many years. I can choose something different. And oftentimes, the something different can lead to things that will just blow your mind. And so, for anyone out there that's listening who feels overwhelmed by your life circumstances, who feels like you just don't even know where to begin, begin in prayer, begin in stillness and meditation. The answers will come for you. Everyone's answers are different, and they're unique to you. So listen for what the solution is for you and start just one step at a time. One step at a time. It could be a simple decision to wear your hair differently, right? I remember when I cut my hair, right? It could be a simple, small sign for yourself physically that you're transforming and that you're going to do something that you like and that you want. It could be wearing jewelry that is authentic to your culture that, just expresses who you are. It could be a whole host of small things that you can do to start to get on the path to say, I'm going to let myself show who I really am through my dress, through how I present myself, through my words. You may even start to change how you're speaking. You may start to implement small boundaries, but start with small things. Identify one small thing that you can do to start to get on the path. It can be overwhelming, but you'll get through it step by step by step. Like Dr. King said, you can't see the steps. You just got to keep taking the steps.
Yes. Okay. So I'm going to press in a little bit more onto something that you said, because as we're moving into this new space of having a heightened awareness of the reset we need, we're going to need to protect the progress that we're making. Yes. So what boundaries have you found that are essential to help women maintain momentum during their reset season?
Ooh, boundaries. If I
Favorite
could,
question.
if I could get a PhD, it would be in boundaries. I want to study boundaries. Um, I love the work of Dr. Nedra Tawwab on boundaries and many others, but I feel like boundaries are oftentimes the missing link for so many women. I know for myself, Tynisha, for years, I didn't have language for what it was. And then I literally read a book entitled Boundaries, and I was just like, that's what it has been. I haven't had boundaries, right? And so I feel like first learning about what boundaries are, they're guardrails. They're not designed to be nasty or rude or cause you to not be in good relationship with people. In fact, it's the contrary. They are guardrails and boundaries truly put up to teach people how to treat you, right? And when we do that, that empowers other people to show up in a way that says, I may need to protect my energy, protect my space. So I would say one of the first and easiest ways for us to look at if we have boundaries or not in our life is around auditing how you manage your time. Do a time study. How are you spending your time? Is it aligned with your vision and what you are seeking to accomplish, or do you have distractions in there? Are the things not accounted for in your schedule that take up time in your day? Right? I heard the head of Beyonce's foundation in an interview, and she said something so beautiful, it stuck with me. She said, you have to be a good steward of the jurisdiction of your time. And I love that because
Wow.
we are stewards of our time. Time is a gift and it can't be replaced. So it behooves us to make sure that we are stewarding our time well. And so periodically, it's good just to do an audit of your schedule to see, are you taking on things that you shouldn't be taking on that are distracting you from the ultimate mission that you're on? If so, govern yourself accordingly. You can start to make some adjustments. So I think boundaries around your time are critically important. If you're working in a really, competitive and high performing job, and it's hard to manage your time, put a boundary around when you're going to stop emailing folks. I was bad with that. I would email late, and thank God for my former colleagues. They had to give me that feedback in love, like, not good, right? Causes people stress. But for yourself and for others, you can just start to put a time boundary. Like, I'm not going to be on email at all past X hour. That's it. I'm going to stop, and that's a firm boundary. So I would say time, apply the boundaries to your time. And I think the second thing that I would say, Tynisha, around boundaries is assessing who you are giving access to. And that could be in-person access, it could be digital access. I am good for on a quarterly basis going into LinkedIn. Am I in connection with people I just don't even know or don't really check for or don't need to be in a relationship? Just edit it, right? You should do that. Who are you giving access to? You? Is your personal email box flooded with advertisements from different businesses? Don't give them access. Access denied, right? If there are people that, take advantage of your time, you don't have to answer the phone every time the phone rings. You don't, right? So boundaries on your time around who you provide access to and what level of access. Your family may get full access. Others don't get full access. Not everyone gets full access to your life. Some people get partial access. So I would say those are the two top things that I would encourage our listeners to focus on, just getting started on the boundary path and on the boundary study, understanding what they are, how to apply them, and just starting small.
Absolutely, yes. We want, excuse me, we want to empower you all to release. Release what is no longer serving you. Release what is not going to help you move forward. Release old patterns, old relationships that in your spirit that are not good for you, that are not feeding your soul. So that is the word today. Release. Do not be afraid to release. So thank you for sharing that. And I love being practical. I love giving our audience and my clients tools to be able to really implement the things that we're talking about. So I want to tie in together a little bit of what we've been talking about about time and accountability and community. And you're the perfect person to ask this because you are managing all of those different roles as a business owner, as a mom, as, all the different things. So without making it seem like this is like one more thing that I have to try to figure out to do, how can women realistically integrate accountability and sisterhood in a sustainable way when they're living very full lives?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. And I think the answer is in just integrating it into your existing system, right? And not trying to be additive, right? And make things overly complicated as you're trying to get well, stay well, and kind of pursue a new path. You mentioned sisterhood there. I'm sure many of our listeners, may have their go-to best friend. I know I do, call her often. But you may have a sister circle, folks that you naturally talk to frequently. You may even have a group chat, on your phone, etc. Plug into that community, or that person. Let them know what you're working towards, and invite them to be a partner with you in it, just to hold you accountable, right? To help you on your way. So I would just start with who already is there and what already is in your day. I think, Tynisha, as it relates to creating time, I would say, just since we had that conversation around boundaries and how to apply them and stewarding your time, I would say audit to see if you're giving yourself time, right?
Mm-hmm.
I will never forget, I was in a meeting with a mentor and a leader a couple of years ago. This was before COVID. And she was doing a little bit of, conversation with the team around, what are your hobbies? What do you like to do? And as soon as she asked the question, I was like, I don't have a hobby. I was like, that's a problem. But it was a provocation for me, because then I went ahead and got a hobby and I started doing capoeira, and it allowed me to get in tune with my language and dance and fitness and martial arts and culture. And so I would say audit for yourself. Like, do you have time for yourself where you have
Mm-hmm.
where you do something fun or playful that could free you up in a way and make you a little lighter so that you can start to hear more about what is next. And also, outside of hobby, just devotional time, quiet time for yourself, even if it's something like, this is a good practical solution, 15 minutes that you give yourself in the morning, 5 minutes prayer, gratitude, devotional, right? However you want to form that. 5 minutes stillness, just breathing, just your breath, and maybe 5 minutes of stretching, just as you get up in the morning. Are you worth 15 minutes? I think so. I think you can carve out at least 15 minutes. So start small with a 15-minute increment of time. In your workday, it could be a 10-minute walk in between meetings.
Mm-hmm.
Walk around the building, just breathing, walking, breathing, moving. Those are small things that people can do to get on the path. Give yourself some time in your schedule. Are you just rushing and working through lunch and drinking a protein drink? Maybe you sit down and enjoy your food and unplug for 30 minutes in your day and just give yourself that time. So I would start with just a few small things, but you are worthy of some of your own time.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And so, with the journey of resetting and transforming, it's not always quick. It's not always obvious that we are having success. And so, I want to take a moment to reframe the idea of success. And can you give us what you think would be a success metric for women who are going through a reset that has nothing to do with titles or income? This is all about the transformation.
Yeah, first I would say your health numbers matter. I would add that, because I've had a couple of health scares over the years that were quite nerve-wracking. And I think staying on top of your numbers, knowing what your health numbers are and status is important, right? So staying on top of regular mammograms, staying on top of the regular testing and diagnostics and blood work that you need to do. I would say, I would be remiss if I didn't start there with a foundational metric of success, because how you steward your temple, how you take care of your body matters. Because if you're not well, you can't fulfill your purpose, right? So I would start there. I think the second thing is around purpose. How are you being of service with your gifts and talents? We just talked about the importance of having time for yourself, but are you having time in community in that way too? It could be at your job. You could be being of service at your job for those who have that specific life story. That's a blessing, right? But for those who don't, are you doing that in a local faith community? Are you, being of service to others with the gifts that you've been given? So I think that's a good measurement too. I think sometimes we forget to do that because we are busy, but just auditing, are we being of service? I'm trying to think if there's anything else. If I had to add one more thing, I would say a measure on fulfillment. Am I fulfilled? Right? Am I feeling like I am being rewarded by what I am doing, that there's some joy in it? We talked a little bit before about kind of just going through the motions and status quo. Asking yourself that question, am I fulfilled? Because I think for a lot of listeners, they may have a sense of unfulfillment, right? There's a lot of people who are overwhelmed and unfulfilled. They have this overwhelm because they're juggling all these things, but then they don't feel fulfilled with everything. So sometimes, quality is better than quantity, right? You may have a large quantity of things and activities and all the stuff, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be fulfilled and that you're going to have joy. Sometimes it is about the quality of what you are doing with your time and who you're spending your time with, that then will lead to a greater sense of fulfillment and less sense of overwhelm. A real quick book plug. Can I give a quick book plug on this
Absolutely.
topic?
We are avid readers.
Yes.
Yes.
So this is a book that really blessed me. And this author I have great respect for, Christine Platt. She's the author of The Afro Minimalist. It is a book that really helped me to get clear on volume, value over volume. That's how I kind of encapsulate that work. So I would just put that as a plug, just to free yourself from the idea that all of the things and all of the time filled and all of that is going to lead to fulfillment. Do a measure of your success, a metric, if you will, around fulfillment as well.
Oh, I love that. That is absolutely rich. And you have actually given us a couple of book plugs. So we'll make sure that we put that information in the show notes so that we can give our listeners some other resources, some additional resources to be able to hang on to. So now I wanted to a little switch up. And I want to our audience just to get to know you on a little bit more personal level. And so I am doing a lightning quickfire round, and this is called the Reset Edition. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, and I want you just to answer quick what comes to the top of your head. Okay?
Yeah. Got it.
Okay. So what is your reset word of the year?
Manifestation. Manifestation. I think that's a big word for me this season as I embark on this entrepreneurial journey and just grow in my faith walk to trust that I'm on the right path. Manifestation is something that I'm really meditating on. How can I manifest what I believe the mandate is that I have to fulfill? And so for me, I would go with manifestation.
I love it. And as I've said several times throughout this week, and what I say is putting feet to your faith.
Love that. I love that. Love that. Love it.
And we've talked about several books this during our session today. And so I want to know specifically, what is a book that has helped shift your mindset? Because we know that everything starts in the mind. And we talked about earlier, you said, renewing your mind. So
Yes.
What is a book that specifically can help with that focus?
Yes. So in addition to reading the scripture daily, I love, love, love the book Homecoming by Dr. Tama Bryant. Amazing book, helped me tremendously when I was in the midst of great change and also great grief. So that one is a big one. I would also recommend another one that really helped me a lot. It's called Radical Awakening by Dr. Safali, it's her last name, Tisbury. That
Okay.
was good. And then one that I have by my bedside that I love the author Jaya John. He has two books that are not meant to be just read straight out, but they're just good spiritual wisdom nuggets. He's a poet, so he writes in a very poetic way. He has a book called Daughter, Drink This Water, and another one called Freedom.
Mm,
Those two have blessed me as well. Yeah.
I love it. We're going to have a whole
So
bookshelf when we're done.
I've been reading. I've been reading. I've been reading on my healing journey. Okay, I've been reading. And
And
so,
I love it. And not that I need any more books, but I am definitely going to be writing all of this
yeah.
down because I'm so excited to dive into them. Um, Next question is, what is your go-to reset ritual on a hard day?
On a hard day, walking in nature is a big one. Like
Mm,
going outside, breathing clean air. That is a big primal one for me. Just instinctually, if I'm in a high stress situation, I need to go for a walk. I need to
yes.
get outside, right? And be in nature. So for me, that is one instinctual one. Um, I think too, breathing. One of the things I notice about myself when I get stressed, I can hold my breath almost. It's like a
Mhm,
shortness of breath. And so
mhm,
sometimes I do need to just consciously pause, step away from what I'm doing and do like I do the 4-6 breathing technique.
mhm,
You inhale for 4, and then you hold it for at least 4 seconds, and then you exhale for 6. And I'll do that about 3 times, and that can cognitively just kind of reset things and send a signal to my body to kind of calm down. So those are two. So I think breath work and walking outside. And of course, as we talked about throughout the conversation, prayer, accessible at any
mhm.
time. Those are probably top 3 for me.
Awesome.
Mhm.
And then finally, every question that I'm asking my guest at the end is, what does it mean to you to rise in this season right now?
Mm, it's a loaded question. In this season, and when you say this season, there's so much going on in our world right now.
Mhm, mhm,
And as a Black human being in particular, there's so much that is traumatic to our lived experience that is taking place right now. And so when I think about in this moment, how we rise, I keep thinking of that scriptural reference in Joshua, be strong and courageous, right? We have to remind ourselves, no matter how bad it gets, we are strong
mhm,
and we are courageous, and we can choose to do different at any time. So if we're unhappy, if we're unfulfilled, if we're overwhelmed, we can choose a different path. I know a good mentor and a friend told me when I was in the thick of a hard moment, she said, remember, you can choose when it ends, you can choose a new path. And that was
mhm,
herbal medicine for me. That was spiritual milk for me. I needed to hear that we have the power and the autonomy, the will, the courage, the strength to choose different and to stand up for what we believe in, to be a voice for those who can't speak up, and to vocalize for ourselves our truth, what matters, what we value, what we believe in, and staying true to that, right? Yes, the world is changing, but some things are unchanging.
mhm.
And we need to be sure and certain about what those things are and stand true and strong in them.
Absolutely. And that is a powerful truth to end on. So, Ayana, where can people follow you if they want to learn more information about what you're doing and just to tap into where you're going?
Sure, sure. I can be found on thetalentcornerstone.com, which is my website. You can also find me on LinkedIn, big user of LinkedIn at Ayana Fernandez Pilgrim, and soon to be on the gram at the Talent Cornerstone. So those are the places where you can find me. I'm looking forward to being in connection with the community that's here with us today.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here today, Ayana. This has been such a light today. Thank you for sharing just your heart, your testimony, your wisdom, and just being so honest with us today. We appreciate you giving us your time.
Thank you, Tynisha. It's been a joy. It's been a pleasure. So glad we're in community with each other. Thank you so much for having me today.
Absolutely. And we can't wait to bring you back. So
Yeah.
we're looking forward to it. Have a good one.
You too.
Wow, wow, wow. So many gems that we dropped today in this session. So please go back and watch the replay so that you can just take it all in, take some notes, and we'll make sure we get you all those book recommendations. And if you are just listening to this episode and something stirred in you, I want to just ground that it is not by accident, that you may not need to start over, but you may need a reset. And so we are going to dive even deeper into how to go about doing a reset in our Fireside Reflection tonight, where I will walk you through the full reset method, which is just a soul aligned blueprint to be able to recognize, disrupt, and rebuild your patterns. We're going to walk through why stuckness doesn't mean you're broken. It means that you're being invited to break through with an intentional plan. So join me tonight at 6 p.m. on YouTube at PurposelyMADELifeTV. And until then, I hope that you reflect gently and you reset boldly. See you tonight.